Good day, everyone. I am Amelia, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone to today's webinar, 2025 HIPAA Training for the Compliance Officer. I would like to introduce our presenter for today, Brian L. Dudel. Brian L. Dudel is a certified professional in health IT, certified HIPAA professional, certified HIPAA administrator, certified business resilient auditor, and certified information system security professional with over 17 years of experience in health IT and compliance consulting. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much. This law has been around a long time. 1996, Clinton was president when it was signed into the law. This regulation in particular has always enjoyed bipartisan support from both sides of the aisle throughout its existence. From its very inception, it was a bipartisan bill. HIPAA is a massive regulation as well. All that we're dealing with is the privacy rule, the security rule, and the breach notification rule. Well, what's the difference in the HIPAA privacy rule and the HIPAA security rule? The privacy rule deals with protected health information in any form, paper, electronic, verbal. You see, whereas the security rule, it deals only with electronic protected health information. But a couple of points I want to make about what was known as the final Omnibus Rule. Should we be fined for violations even if a breach doesn't occur? Well, you have to send them their medical record unencrypted if that's how they want it and that's how they accept the risk. So yeah, historically, over all of 2012, 4 million in fines, 6.5 million in 2013, and then numbers started going up and up and up. 2024 saw a increase in enforcement with business associates and, of course, with breaches with business associates. Businesses need to conduct their own internal HIPAA security risk assessments. All right, a little bit on telemedicine. Make sure that you use a HIPAA-compliant telemedicine solution. You need to make sure your telecommuting policy is up to date and current. We want to use encrypted Wi-Fi, wireless. Don't use open Wi-Fi ever. When we telecommute, ideally we want to be paperless. If you do need to print paper or bring, when I say paper, that means paper with PHI on it. All right, speaking of changes, let's start with the 2025 changes. Now we're going to start with the HIPAA privacy rule changes, and then we'll talk about the reproductive health changes, which there's actually an injunction on that in federal court out in Texas. So let's start with the privacy rule changes. Patients are now allowed to bring their smartphone back into the clinical area. Eased identity verification. Also specifies when PHI must be provided free of charge. Patients are allowed to request that a provider or a plan submit an access request for PHI and an EHR. We need to create a requirement for these organizations to facilitate an individual's request for a copy of their health information in an electronic health record and receive the information on behalf of the individual. So third parties. This permits covered entities to disclose PHI to third-party organizations that provide health-related services for individual-level care coordination and case management. Reproductive health care changes. There's a few changes here that prohibits the use or disclosure of PHI when it is sought to investigate or to impose liability on individuals, providers, or others who seek, obtain, provide, or facilitate lawful reproductive health care or to identify persons for such activities. The changes to the HIPAA security rule, and it really does need modified because these proposals aim to strengthen the current standards and implementation specifications. Also, there's going to be a lot of updates in the terminology within the regulation. Require greater specificity with conducting security risk assessments when someone is terminated. We need to notify certain regulated entities within 24 hours. Strengthen the requirements for planning contingencies and responding to security incidents. These are very big. Require a HIPAA security risk assessment annually. Require encryption of PHI at rest. Multi-factor authentication will be required. You need to review policies and procedures. Require group health plans to include their plan document requirements without talking about cyber threats because by far this is our biggest risk. This is the big problem that we're having. Now, 2023, 133 million Americans were affected. Yeah, healthcare is a major target. In fact, it is, like I said, the worst. These systems that we use, these EMR systems, these telemedicine, email, and all these other software as a service make things a lot easier, but certainly open up and expand entry points. You have to have good IT. Pay attention to, and of course, good technology, business level firewalls, the humans can be human firewalls. You're actually assets rather than liability. Now, ransomware, real quick, ransomware comes through phishing scams. What it does is it will attack every folder, every file share, every database. You need to encrypt data at rest now. There are 8 categories of exceptions. And honestly, as compliance officers, you need to know what the exceptions are, really. There are 5 exceptions that involve not fulfilling requests. Exceptions that involve not fulfilling requests to access, exchange, or use electronic health information. PHI in transmission is going to need to be encrypted. You need a policy for personal device use, period. But HHS did put some guidance out about personal device use by your patients, because now they're allowed to bring their smartphones in, their personal resources to take pictures and notes and all of that stuff. It's because some application on your phone sold where you were to some data analytics group trying to sell you this stuff. We are not to be texting medical information at all unless it's directly to patient with consent, not through regular SMS. The HIPAA privacy rule requires an accounting of disclosures. Patients have a right to know to whom their information was disclosed to. Simple solution. If you want to use texting within your organization, you will have to download a third-party HIPAA-compliant application for this. Trial attorneys, we already talked about this, the litigation and how bad it's getting because we're having so many breaches. Small providers tend to struggle more than the larger providers when under audit and complying. In conclusion, as I said throughout this, there is no perfection, there's no stamp, there's no certification. We are expected to follow these proper policies. Policies, here's what we're going to do. Procedure, here's how we're going to do it. Sometimes that means better technology so we can reasonably show we're making an effort to protect against common threats and vulnerability. Being proactive is the key, most critical point here. I think that's all I have. I hope you guys got some good information out of that. Yep, that's all I have, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Brian. That concludes the session for today. Thank you, everyone, for participating. You may all disconnect now and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.